To the Preparing the Soul for War Symposium, hosted by the United States Army Maneuver Center of Excellence and the 75th Ranger Regiment. Over the next 2 days, we will hear from leading experts on subjects pertaining to combat, killing, and the effect of war on the human mind and soul. Several of our presenters are published authors and will have books for sale and signing today located in the command post. For a complete agenda and full biographies of all our presenters, please read the Symposium Guide, which can be accessed through the QR code posted throughout this room. Restrooms are in the atrium outside Marshall Auditorium. At this time, I would like to introduce the Commanding General of the United States Army Maneuver Center of Excellence and Fort Benning, Major General Colin Tuli.
All right, can you guys hear me with this? Yeah, that's not a good answer. How about up there? Can you guys hear me? All right, good thumbs up. Okay. Hey, thanks for the applause. You haven't heard my speech yet, so it could go really bad, okay? Hey, this is such an important event. It really is. And I'm going to share a couple thoughts with you as we kind of get ready for this preparation of the soul for war. You know, and I look out here in this audience, I got Bullocks, I got Triple C, I got OCS, got some permanent party, got some chain of commands. So how about just real quick, just for my own sense of understanding, you know, how many folks in here have been to combat? Okay, not much. How many folks in here have a spouse? How many folks have a spouse and kids? Okay, so a lot more than what we have for combat, okay? Okay, that's a good splattering there and understanding, okay? And I will just tell you, you know, this morning I started off, and I'm going somewhere with this. This morning I started off with PT, didn't know what I was going to get into with the battalion commanders. And it was a workout called the Metcalf. Okay, Sergeant First Class Dan Metcalf. And you look at the workout, it had 1982, that's your cash in, it had all these things you had to do, you know, with the number 29, and it ends out with the cash out of 2012. September 29th, 2012, Sergeant First Class Dan Metcalf gave his life to this country. He was in Afghanistan fighting in probably one of the toughest spots for folks who have been there. It's called the Tangi Valley, okay? Nothing good happens in the Tangi Valley. And he gave his life. And more importantly, to think about, when you read his bio and you read what happened, you look at who was left behind. He had a wife and 3 kiddos. Okay? I know today's title is Prepare the Soul, and it's almost like Prepare Our Souls. And it's more than just the souls of the service members. And I would offer to you as you go through these 2 days, you actually think about how are you preparing the other folks that are affected by war? That's the families, spouse, kiddos, extended family, moms, dads, okay? You got to think that, you got to really put yourself in those shoes. For the kids, and I got to see this for the last 20 years, so you call it being fortunate or unfortunate, it really doesn't matter. Bottom line, for 20 years, you know, I deployed. Now, I'll give you a personal example, because it's one that's probably stuck with me, you know, probably till, you know, to today. So I started deploying over to Afghanistan, Iraq back in 2000, it'd be back early 2004. Youngest daughter was 4 years old. She had no clue what was happening. Not a clue. Oldest daughter had a clue, but didn't really understand it. One time I came back from deployment, and all she remembers last time I left, it was on a 4th of July night. We watched 4th of July fireworks, took them home, put them to bed. I went into work, went to the airfield later on, and then we deployed. So the last thing she remembers was that. So I get back home from a deployment, not thinking about this. What happened to the souls of the kiddos? Wasn't even on my mind. If anything, I was probably selfish and probably was thinking more about myself. Like, man, I've been gone. I've been in combat. I'm tired. You know, all that kind of stuff. I probably didn't put a lot of thought into the kiddos, what impact on the kids, and the family. And so I get back, we have like a week of, we get to take the kids into school. We did PT later in the morning. It was all great. I was in civilian clothes every day doing that. And if this matters, okay? And then on final day, I took her to school down at Stellacombe, and I was in uniform. And I dropped her off to the classroom, and then I started walking. I gave her a kiss, said, yeah, good luck, and I started walking away. All I could hear is this huge crying, wailing sound. She just stood there with tears just flowing. And I couldn't understand. Again, I was not in this mode of mind right here. And then it hit me. It hit me hard. The last time she saw me in uniform was the night I deployed. And she didn't even know that. She's 4. She didn't even know that. It's just inside her DNA, inside her soul, right? She didn't even know why she was crying. So it's that important, folks. I give that example because it impacts families. I can tell you right now, just from from me, that has stayed with me my entire career. That has stayed with me in terms of what is important in what we do in our profession each and every day. How do we prioritize families? How do we help them through? How do we prepare them? And it's not just going to be the future fights. We talk about large-scale combat operations. It could be things, pre-crisis, pre-conflict. Just you being away. Your spouse, your mom and dad, your cousins, your siblings, your kids, all they know is he or she is gone. That's all they know. They don't know what you're doing. They just know you're not here. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind in terms every day and how you approach your personal life, your professional life, your family life, okay? Okay, the next 2 days, I'll just tell you, you have some great speakers lined up, okay? I would engage with them. I would be talking to yourselves. Look at the world that we live in. If you're not keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world, then you probably shouldn't be sitting in here right now. You probably shouldn't even be wearing a uniform. You've got to be tuned in. It's that important. We have a lot of talks many times over about, what's going on in the world. A lot of folks keep on trying to discount the Middle East. The Middle East has not gone away. It's all in open source. You can read it right there in open source. The things that we're doing are unprecedented over the last probably 5 to 8 years. Okay? Having a carrier strike group, that's new. It's out there in the Arabian Sea, down there in the area. You saw yesterday, there's news articles about B-2s being stationed at Diego Garcia. That's not a small thing, folks. It's not a small thing, okay? And it's not somebody else's problem, okay? America's going to lead, okay? But we've got to be ready. You've all got to be ready. Then you go to Europe. You have what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. That has not ended, okay? That has not ended. And then you look at what's going on in the Indo-Pacific, okay? And the one part I haven't brought up is we'll see how it all kind of flushes out, but you're watching things turn out down on our border. We have deployed combat formations down on our border. Nope. Don't know what's going to happen. Central America, South America. Again, the world is unstable in some ways. And that's going to be the case. But what you can do, for the folks that are in here, what you can do is that you can actually prepare yourself. That's a fact. Trying to guess what's happening in the Middle East, Europe, Indo-PACOM, that can go any direction. But what can go in a straight direction, okay, what can go in a straight trajectory is your personal preparation. You control that. That's not on the speakers or your chain of commands that are up here. That's on you. You got a uniform, it says United States Army, that's on you. That's on you to prepare, both mentally, physically, everything, okay? Yeah, you got to think about it. You should be thinking about it. I already gave you an example of what not to do. Don't do what I did when I first started deploying. You got to be thinking through about your family. You got to be talking with your parents. You got to be talking with your siblings. You got to understand what the small kids or children in your families are going through, okay? But that is on you. That's not somebody else's responsibility. That's not somebody else's problem to solve. It's actually yours, okay? And I'm looking down here with all these OCS candidates, soon to come up to be second lieutenants. It's going to be on you, starting at the second lieutenant level. It's not going to be, well, my company commander. No, no, no. You as a person, you as a leader in the United States Army. Don't care about the rank. You're a leader in the United States Army. So after you prepare yourself, which is a continuous journey, it's not a one and done. Today and tomorrow is not a one and done. It might just be the beginning of your own personal journey, or it might be a midpoint in your journey, but it's a journey nonetheless. And that's the way you got to mentally approach what you're going to do for the next couple of days, or at least through today and tomorrow. You got to be thinking about that journey. And then, yeah, as leaders, you got to be thinking about how do you help that journey for your soldiers that are going to be in your future formations, okay? You got to have these conversations as well. You are going to be that, ambassador of the preparation of soul, okay? That is your job as leaders. So as I look at CCC students, future company commanders, I see BOLIC students, future platoon leaders, it's on you, okay? You've got to help out your young soldiers. Soldiers that are like 18 years old, okay? 18. They don't have a lot of life experience. They have about zero professional experience. But you've got to help them through this, okay? And there's a resiliency part of it, okay? All right. I'll probably go, how much time did you guys give me? Good. It's in fact, a very loaded question. So I'm joking, okay? You're good. Stop sweating. He's up here going, I do not want this job ever again. But hey, my thanks to, and let me just kind of end it off before we start the program, but let me just end it off with a big, really just gratitude and thank you to everybody in here, okay? And I'm actually not thanking you for being in here. I'm actually thanking you for what you have right here on your chest, United States Army. I'm thanking you for all of you raising your right hand and saying, I want to serve. I want to lead soldiers. So my thanks to all of you for doing that, okay? That's a huge commitment. It's a huge selfless service. And I'll just tell you, I'd end it, if you haven't heard it before, the kind of the three tenets, that I push out to leaders, okay? When you get out there, you're the best teammates, okay? That's it. You can do everything else wrong almost. If you're the best teammate in everything you do and how you approach everything, personally, tactically, how you with your peers, be the best teammate. Be the best teammate. Second one is be relentless in everything you do. Be relentless on making you the best you. Be relentless on making your soldiers the best soldiers. Be relentless in making the folks around you, making your organization the best organization, okay? Make your peers and your friends the best people. Be relentless. Every morning you should wake up, the hair on the back of your neck should just be standing going, I'm crushing it today. Today I'm going in there, I'm going to crush it again. You got to be relentless, okay? I didn't say be an extrovert. Didn't say be an introvert. Be you, whatever that is. But be relentless nonetheless. And the last one is be unreasonable. Be unreasonable how you hold yourself to standards, how you hold others to standard. Do you wake up every day? Do you approach PT and hold yourself to a standard for physical fitness? It starts right there. Every day starts with physical fitness. How do you hold people to an unreasonable standard? You have to be unreasonable, okay? You've got to have these 3 tenets as a leader. And there's probably a lot of lists out there. But while you're here, you're going to have these 3 tenets, okay? That's kind of how it works. But I would just tell you, if you remember nothing else, prepare yourself, listen to these folks here, and when they talk with you, continue to put it into the optic of yourself and to the organizations you're going to go out to. Think about every person in here has a different story. Everybody, there is not one story that's the same with any 2 people. Everybody has a different story. Think about what they talk to you about and how it applies to your story. And then how do you make that better, okay? So kind of like thanks in advance to all the speakers we're going to have here today. I know it's going to be just a phenomenal time talking about this. For the folks who have not been to combat, doesn't matter. For the folks who've been to combat, it doesn't matter. It's a journey for all of us, okay? My journey is continuing. I see some old-time colonels out in front of me. It's, you don't have to raise your hand, Chris. Our journeys don't end, okay? It doesn't end ever. Okay, we've all got to continue the journey on this and how you prepare yourself for war, okay? You really do. And it's not easy, okay? And most likely it won't be the conflicts that you've read about for the last 20 years. Just look at Ukraine and other places, okay? All right, this is a great time to see you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you. This is good. So, are we putting them on a break, or are we just going straight into it? All right, let's go. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, General Tuli. Our first presenter is Dr. Pete Kilner. He is a retired Army officer and former civilian associate professor at the United States Military Academy. His areas of expertise in organizational learning, military ethics, moral injury, and character development. Dr. Kilner is a graduate of West Point and served 28 years as an enlisted soldier, infantry officer, public affairs officer, and West Point professor of leadership development and organizational learning. He co-edited the book, Taking the Guide On, Exceptional Leadership at the Company Level, and co-founded the Army's Company Command and Platoon Leader online professional forums. As an Academy professor, Dr. Kilner co-led the forums and taught courses on moral philosophy, military ethics, and officership. Beginning with his 1998 master's thesis, Soldiers, Self-Defense, and Killing in War, Dr. Kilner has proposed moral justifications for killing in war. His work led him to be among the first to identify moral injury as a phenomenon distinct from post-traumatic stress. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Pete Kilner.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm sure that some people looking at the title of the talk may be responding reasonably, hey, I'm a combat soldier, not a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. I bring good to the world by killing bad people. And so character, it seems like, may be in tension against doing what the good things I do for my country. As someone who teaches character development in the military, I find people say, or sometimes they think it's an either or. I can be like a really good person, or I can be a really good warrior. I hope in an hour from now, if you're thinking that way, you're much more open to the idea that, in fact, character development is the foundation of being a great soldier. That the more we develop our holistic character, the more effective we are on the battlefield, the more ethically and honorably we'll fight, and the better able we are to return from combat and to go on in life as a healthy, flourishing, happy human being. So this is my story. When I was 18, I came down to Fort Benning, became an 11 Bravo. 6 years later, I was commissioned as an 11 Alpha. About 6 or 7 weeks after I graduated from the career course here, I was on an aircraft. We were going Operation Restore Democracy. We were going to restore democracy in Haiti. And the battalion I was in had the mission to conduct an airborne assault to seize Port-au-Prince International Airport. And a soldier asked the chaplain, "Hey, chaplain, we're going to kill all these people tonight." I was an assistant S3, so I knew we were going to kill about 200. That's what I planned for. And the chaplain, he says, "We're going to kill all these people. Is it right?" And the chaplain turned to him, looked a little shook, and said, "Well, the president told you to do it. You're a soldier. That makes it right." I remember thinking that wasn't really a great answer. I'm sure there was a better answer somewhere. In the end, we got turned around, no combat jump. Other people restored democracy there. But I went on, and then the Army fortuitously asked me to go study philosophy. I went to look up the moral justification of killing in war, didn't find really good answers, so kind of developed one on my own and went forward. But in the course of being someone who talks about the morality of killing, I've interviewed hundreds of soldiers, and I kind of came across what we call moral injury. And moral injury is the psychological and social and spiritual harm that results from when we do something that violates our moral code, or when we fail to stop someone else from doing it, or even if we just implicated it in any way. And a lot of people suffer from that. And then I think it was Nancy Sherman, someone who writes, a professor who writes about moral injury. She described it as an unraveling of character. That sometimes people have experiences where they no longer think that they're a good person and have trouble going forward in life. And that led me kind of to the last 8 or 10 years of really thinking about character development. And I am convinced that the best way we can prepare ourselves to go to war, fight and win, do it in a way that makes the American people proud, and go on to live great lives, is to intentionally pay attention to our character, with at least the same emphasis we do, on our battle drills and other kind of skills. So what I'm going to propose in the next half hour or so is a framework for understanding character, because it's kind of crazy. It's super important. Our character impacts everything we do all day, but very few of us got any kind of background theoretical formation on it. So I want to propose a framework. I've sent it into Military Review. I hope it'll be published. This is not just stuff I'm making up. This is very much grounded in the academic research of character development. And I hope that by the end, I hope that while we're going through it, we're all thinking about our own lives. For me, learning about this stuff, I think, has been really helpful for me because, we need theoretical frameworks, right? I mean, we can always work out, but if you understand the principles of fitness, you can work out better, right? And anyone who trained Afghans and Iraqis knew that they could be brave and go out and do things, but if you actually understand fire and maneuver and principles of doctrine, you can do it more effectively. So it's the same with character. The more we have a language for it, the more we can get better at it. This is a quote I heard just last week at a conference at the Naval Academy that struck me. I thought it was very apropos. General Pace was Commandant of the Marine Corps. Hey, if we have not thought about who we want to be at the end of the day, especially in war, we may not like who we are at the end of the day. And that points out the importance of being intentional about what kind of person we want to be, especially in this profession. And here's another. This is no particular quote. It's kind of a truism, I think, of the profession of arms, that in war, as much as we like to think we'll rise to the occasion, it's much more likely that we'll default to our training. So when we were preparing to jump into Haiti, one of the things that was on our mind was the Rangers and the 82nd jumps into Panama 5 years before. And one of the things observed there is that one of the battalions jumped in to a contested airfield. They jumped into a firefight. And the paratroopers hit the ground, got up, rolled up their parachutes, put them in their bag, then put their weapons in operation. They did what they had practiced doing. Because even if they weren't thinking that, they knew, hey, it's combat. You don't got to worry about that stuff. When you're tired, when you're scared, when you're stressed, when people are shooting at you, we're probably going to default to what we've done before. And that's why, and it's the same with our skills. It's the same with what we're going to do on a contested airfield. It's the same in how we're going to treat people, right? It's the same with how we're going to think through problems. Character is a matter of thinking it all through. Okay. Just want to point out, we'll do some definitional, conceptual understanding. Guarantee you, well, if you go to war, it's very likely that most people in this auditorium are going to end up in war and probably leading other people in war. You're going to face really challenging moral decisions. And they're of two types. They're questions of moral integrity. The questions of moral integrity are when you know what the right thing to do is, but it's just really hard to do it. You have a detainee that you have captured who you know just killed one of your buddies. You are fired up. You are angry. You know it is your duty as a soldier under the laws of war to treat that person with respect, to not to harm the person. You know that as a human being, that's another human being. They're no longer a threat. You shouldn't do violence to them. But you're really going to want to, right? Your emotions. And so situations like that are moral strength. It's not a question of what's right. It's a question of can we do what's right. And I'd say that in civilian life, most of the time when we do the wrong thing in everyday life, we know it's wrong. We're just like, I don't care enough about doing the right thing in this instance. What I found in war is that a lot of times people desperately want to do what's right. I think there's something about being so close to death that makes us think about what's the legacy we want to leave, that makes us think that, either I'm going to die and go meet my maker in judgment, or I'm going to live and have to live with myself, that people actually have a greater attunement to wanting to do the right thing, but it can be really hard. And so how do we develop the strength to do the right thing? The others are challenges of moral judgment, where people want to do the right thing, but war is really, really complex. Most of our moral decisions, our civilian lives, right, they're pretty structured. We can kind of follow the rules, follow the norms, do what everyone else is doing, and we'll be okay. In war, especially as leaders, you'll face situations where you want to do what's right and you're not even sure it's right. So how do we develop that quality of thinking? Whoops. So I want to do a quick exercise. Hope I didn't ruin it right there. Think about someone, a fellow professional of arms that you admire, or someone that you think that if you're going to go to war, let's say you're going to go to war and you know it's going to be 12 months of large-scale combat operations, and you have to pick someone to be your immediate superior. Maybe they'll be your company commander, maybe they'll be your team leader, whatever, but someone that you're going to fight with and under the orders of. If you had to pick anyone in the world, and it could be someone who's a colonel now and you just bring them down and make them a lieutenant or captain, think of the person. Everyone think of who's one person, who would you pick if you could do that? Who would you pick to be your battle buddy and leader in war? Think of a specific person. Now think, probably there are tens or hundreds of possibilities you could have chosen from. What is it about that person that had you think of them? Think of 3 characteristics. What are those most important characteristics about that person that had that person come to your mind? Just pick 3. Now, and I'm sure I won't regret this, each of you just turn to each side to the person and say, don't say the person's name, don't get into a big long story, don't explain yourself. What are those 3 characteristics of the person? Say it, hear it, turn to the other person, say it and hear it. You got 20 seconds, go. All right, excellent, time's up. Now, I wasn't there to be able to hear it all, but I'm just guessing. I've done this kind of exercise a lot. And you probably heard things like this. Hey, they're brave. they're hardworking, the person just makes good decisions, they're calm under pressure, they're not going to lie to me, they're not going to screw me, I know that they're actually committed to the mission and not some selfish thing. Probably all on those terms. What you didn't hear, I'm guessing, is, oh, this person's tall or short or white or brown or black, right? Or all these other things. I just want to point it out that human beings have a whole lot of traits. Some are genetic and we can't change, right? Our race, our height, what our nose looks like, unless we're going to have surgery, right? You can't change, including personality traits. So there are personality traits, and the general mentioned it, like introversion, extroversion. He said, be yourself, just be relentless, because he recognizes that that's a personality trait. You're probably always going to be that. So some genetic traits, they're fixed, right? Then there's personality traits, very hard to change and only change a little bit. We don't judge people by those things. We don't admire or disdain people for the things they cannot control. You can be, a great tall person or a crappy tall person or a great introvert or a great extrovert, right? Doesn't matter. But we cannot help. We judge excellence by what are people's character traits. And what's distinguishing about character traits is that we're responsible for them. We're not born genetically, dispossessed to be honest or dishonest. Now, our family of origin may influence us, but as we become an adult, that is our choice. Character is a choice. All those kind of things are choices. Our character is our choice. Right? Because we know people who have self-control and people who are all over the place and impulsive. Some are so selfless and they're always looking out for the team, and some are self-serving bastards, right? And almost all of us are somewhere in between. As much as we'd want to have these good traits called the virtues, and we don't want to have those others, but sometimes they pop up. And the process of character development is trying to move us farther right on that line through the things we do. This isn't anything different than other parts of our lives. The general talked about PT. Why do we do PT all the time? Because we have to maintain it. Like our physical fitness, if we all went out and did ACFTs today, how we did would largely be a result of all the things we've done in the past. Have we worked out hard? Have we rested? Have we eaten right? And we have built up our strength so that we can perform reliably today. It's the same with our character. How hardworking you are today, how honest you are today, especially when it's difficult, how you think through problems, if you do it critically or not, that's not going to come out of nowhere. You're only going to do that today if you've been practicing. And the whole reason we practice and do PT is so that when you get to war and you have to jump over walls and drag casualties and do all these things that you don't practice every day, but you've built up your capabilities so that you can respond in that complex environment, it's the same with our character. So every time we're respectful, right, that's a tool in our kit bag that helps us when they bring in the detainees that we're so angry at. So our character is built one conscious action at a time. Not by thinking about it, just by thinking about it, by doing it. There's muscle memory, in a sense, there's character memory. And we know it. When you think of the best people, the people with the most impressive character, a lot of times someone will say, man, they're just naturally that way. It's not even hard for them. They stop and help people, and it's not hard. It's just who they are. Well, it's only who they are because of all the things they've done in the past. All right? And don't we all want to be the kind of leader that people trust and just say, that person is naturally composed and critical thinking and relentless, but respectful of me and honors the unit in all they do. That is character. So I want to talk, the Army has Army values, which are great. But the distinction, the relationship, it's not a big distinction, between values and virtues, and why I think virtues are more important. Values are absolutely important, but we want to be thinking in terms of virtues. So values are motivational preferences, most generically. Like, if all we had were facts in the world and observations, we couldn't make decisions. We always have to value something to say we're going to do A rather than B. Now, the Army and other organizations, a lot of times they say, these are our values. These are the things we want you to base your decisions on. And they can be very contextual. You can work with a company that says, we value shareholder value. So you're supposed to make decisions that are going to maximize profit, not necessarily take care of the environment or whatever else. They're the starting point, having good value. So values aren't necessarily good or bad. Greed's a value. Popularity is a value. Sometimes those things can lead to not good character. But you have to have values, good values, and they're the starting point. And the Army has great 7 Army values and the 4 additional attributes. Virtues are values that have been internalized through doing them, through thinking about them, so that, like, you may say, I value respect, and there's probably people who treat everyone respectfully at work because it's an Army value, but go out in their neighborhoods and treat people like crap on the way home, right? Because it hasn't been internalized into who they are, it's just something they do in a particular context. Virtues are when those values, those good values we admire, we've practiced them, thought about them so much that they become how we see the world. They influence what we notice, what we do, what our motivations are, right? It becomes a part of our identity. So really, when the Army says, and 622 says, you should live the Army values 24/7 and be a soldier for life living them, what they're saying is, make these values virtues. But virtues can only be inside a person, where values can be out there. So that's the distinction. They're closely related. You can't have virtues without good values. But you can have good values. Right? You can be a junior leader and say, I really want to be the kind of person who's calm under pressure, but you're put under pressure and you spaz out, right? Because you need more practice and reflection. And maybe start with less stressful things and work up to it. All right, so now I'm going to run through kind of a framework for understanding character, because very often, if you talk to an athletic program and a coach, if we brought up Coach K, well, not him, he's different. A typical athletic coach to come up and talk character, they'd be talking performance character, right? If we brought up an academic, they'd be talking about the character of being a great scholar. And if your mom says, oh, go out with this person, she or he has great character, they're probably thinking moral character. So there's different kind of parts of our life where it's an artificial division in some sense, but it helps me see this a lot. And this comes from the Jubilee Center in the UK. There are moral virtues, and these are the virtues that express the respect we have for ourselves and for others. Right? They're fundamental humanity. There are civic virtues, and these are moral in a sense, but these are all these virtues where you're serving the common good. So maybe if you're the commissary and the person in front of you, their bag breaks and it falls down and you help pick up the groceries, that's a moral virtue, you're helping a person. But maybe if you go to the commissary and you just see the carts left out and you know someone's going to come in at night and their car could hit a cart and you put it away, right? That might be more civic in the sense of those virtues that help the group be a great teammate, be a great member of your organization, be a great citizen, right, of our country. Those are civic virtues. And these are not all-inclusive lists. These are just some selected as examples. There are intellectual virtues. Now, we said up front, you shouldn't judge someone as good or bad because of their intellectual capacity, which is genetic. But I tell you, you can have genius IQ but make bad decisions because you lack the intellectual humility to involve other people. Or you haven't developed the skill of seeing things from different perspectives. Right? So we all have some genetic limit, bottom and top limit, but how well we use that, that's a matter of virtues. That's a matter of skills that you can practice. And there are performance virtues, which the Army's phenomenal at, right? Like, get it done. Be relentless, persevere, know when to have tactical patience, but that's only because then you're going to go, you know when to attack. And you can see this. So now, again, this is not developed for the military. This is developed just for what makes a good human being. Good human beings, people we would say are excellent, possess moral virtues, civic virtues, intellectual virtues, and performance virtues. And if someone's missing any of these, right? If they're really kind and loving, or they're well-intentioned and they want to do what's right for the group, but they don't show up on time, they don't follow through, if they lack performance virtues, it's kind of a waste, right? And if someone's great at intellectual, can solve big problems and get things done, but if you don't have good morals, like, you could end up being a Nazi, right? I mean, they were effective in certain ways, but they were horrible. And so when you think about the leaders you had, I'm guessing the best leaders, the people you admire, the peers you most admire, are good in all these areas of life. Now, everyone in this room is a professional of arms. Any profession, if we were a bunch of nurses or a bunch of nuns, we could pick out different virtues, right? But in the profession of arms, there's probably some things that they fit into one of the regular domains, but they are especially important in this profession. So we just pull them up. It's not really a separate domain. It's saying we're highlighting these virtues that any person can have, and it's probably nice for anyone to have an appropriate sense of candor. It can be critically important in the military to speak up forcefully, right? To say what needs to be said, even if it's not popular. Or when you think about how important obedience is, and some of the orders we may have to go forward on. So this is just a profession-specific way. So you can look at it this, like, what does it mean kind of to be a holistic good person? It's to pursue excellence in all these areas where we can control what kind of person we are. Now, someone may say, well, maybe not. But when I look at this, I think, well, two of the biggest ones aren't here. Integrity, honor. Don't worry, we're coming to them. Those are what are called second-order virtues or higher-order virtues. Both of those are made up of a whole lot of other virtues. So, integrity is being true to yourself. Integrity is living the values that you espouse across all domains of virtues. And that's why almost the best thing you can say about a person is that that's a person of integrity. And what you're saying is they walk their talk, right? The video matches the audio. But you can be a person of great integrity, but honor is separate. So honor, whereas integrity is very personal, being true to yourself, honor is the virtue of being true to your honor community. Anyone who's in Afghanistan and knows about the Pashtun and the Pashtunwali, their code of honor, they had a whole set of rules of what it means to be a good Pashtun. But that can be any group. West Point has its honor code, and it says, if to be honorable, you do not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate others who do. Mafia, honor code, do what the boss says, don't squeal to the police, right? So not everyone is a member of an honor community. The profession of arms is one of the Army ethic. Honor is being true to your group. So it's a socially constructed higher order virtue. Right, so someone could have great integrity, be a good person, but in the profession of arms, not be an honorable soldier if you disregard the martial virtues. Those are the distinctive characteristics of our profession. At the same time, I guess if you're a mafia, or maybe you're in a team, an athletic team, some of the best honor communities you see are athletic teams where they have really high standards of not drinking, eating certain ways, working out, treating your teammates, and if you're not a part of it, you're out, right? Honor communities tend to say you're either an honorable member in good standing or we're kicking you out because you have shamed yourself and our organization. So as we build it out, integrity is just living true to what is good and true in yourself. Honor, and so I think typically when we were first developing this, it was more like, well, honor is just the martial virtues. But then, you know what? There is no such thing as being a great soldier who exhibits the martial virtues but is a crappy human being. And we've made that mistake a lot. We've made that mistake of saying, oh, that sergeant is so great downrange, is an absolute warrior, so we'll overlook the beating of the spouse. or they're showing up to work drunk, or these other problems of just their basic integrity of being a good human being. And we know that's self-destructive for the whole organization. In a democracy, in an army that supports a constitution that is based on human rights and the dignity of every person, I really believe to be an honorable soldier is to be a person of integrity. Like, that's a necessary condition for it. But in the end, all these virtues are just building blocks, right? I mean, it's good that you develop A, B, and C and do all that. And in simple situations, you know, most times just be honest, right? Or keep going on that particular goal. But life is complex. War especially is super complex. And you're going to find that virtues come into conflict. And the wise person, the person you trust, again, think about that person you admire that you would want to fight under. They make good judgments. I mean, Don Snyder, one of the first people writing about the Army profession, said that judgment is the coin of the realm for officership. Right? You get paid, all Army leaders get paid to make good judgments. You'll make good judgments if you have this entire kit bag. So that when it comes up, you know, true life situations, come across a couple times in my interviews where a soldier dies in battle in a really bad way. Like in one case, died screaming for his mother, and you know, they couldn't get to him. But then, so you know, they just say he died in battle. But then you come back to your memorial service, and the parents come up and they're like, "Tell me, how did he die? What was it like?" You know, they want to hear that he died in their arms. He didn't. Are you honest? You know, are you compassionate? Well, you got to find a way to be both, right? And it's judgment calls. And when you're a leader, is this a time for justice or a time for mercy? Tactically, is this a time to drive on with initiative or patience? We're always making judgments. So ultimately, practical wisdom was a term Aristotle used, which is saying the good person has to have all these virtues, but then knows how to apply them in a particular situation, in this time, in this place, and a lot of times there's going to be trade-offs among them. And so that's what we're trying to work up to. But if you're really strong in some things and weak on others, you'll be blind to the other things. And then they won't come in and play, they at least should be part of your decision-making calculus. The ones in green are the ones that are already in Army doctrine. That's all of them. If you look through 622, right, leadership in the Army profession, 7-8, 622, it's there. So we already recognize as a profession, boy, all these things are really important. We just haven't had a framework where we see, oh my gosh, all these things are important, and all these things are in character, and all these are things that I need to do my best to try to develop. So this is kind of the what of, I think, a broader look of what character is. And again, I'm not making this up. This is probably the dominant scholarship now out there in the world. You could also add spiritual virtues. They are distinctly spiritual virtues, not religious, but spiritual. But for right now, I think this would be a big advantage, just or, you know, worthwhile to expand our scope to see these. All right, now let's talk about how character develops. This will be much more brief, simple, one model. Again, this was first published by the Jubilee Center in the UK, and they say there's a lot of different things that impact our character development, but they can be categorized kind of in that character is caught from our environment, and you can't get away from that. Some things about character can be taught, but ultimately, character must be sought. So first, character is caught. I mean, we got our character from our family, from our schools, from civic organizations, religious organizations. We looked up to people. They rewarded and punished certain behaviors, right? And that's where we got our sense of who we are. I think this is, in general, you know, you'll hear a lot of times people say your character doesn't develop once you're an adult, you leave home. One, empirically, it's not true. But two, I will say that for most people, they're not in a character-developing environment once they leave home, unless they're very active in a religious or other kind of organization. But the Army is the most natural character-shaping environment there is, right? Kind of controls our lives. We have leaders. We have role models. We have rewards and punishments. If we do this right, people can come into the Army without good formation, and the Army can form them. People are plastic all the way up to about my age in terms of character. Some things can be taught, and that's what we're talking about now. Some skills can be trained. People will say, well, you can't teach character in a classroom. No, but you don't make people great tacticians in a classroom. You don't make people great physical athletes in a classroom, right? You can get an A in kinesiology and pass all your doctrine tests and go out and fail the physical fitness test if you don't work out in practice. But learning the intellectual stuff can help you work out better, right? Learning the tactics can help you get out on the terrain and make the best use of your time and understand what's going on. So it's the same with character. And ultimately, character must be sought. And this is a challenge because, the Army, it's a big organization. We're trying to make everybody conform. We have rewards and punishments. That's very low level, right? So if character is if doing the right thing is a matter of just compliance, and that's all it is, that's very low level. And if it's just conformity, right, that's a low level. That is not setting the person up to make hard decisions in hard situations. We have to get in the habit of saying, this is who I want to be, and so I'm going to work on it myself. I'm going to consciously think about why I should do this and not say, oh, I'm just doing it because everyone else is doing it, and I don't want to get in trouble. Still, you should do the right thing, but think about it. So, final slide, kind of bringing it all together. If we have time for Q&A, we'll do some Q&A. We started off talking questions, moral integrity, moral judgment, those kind of challenges, decisions you're going to have to make. Regardless of rank, you're going to have to make some calls. With increased rank, it's more likely. Character strength, the more we intentionally say we're just going to do the right thing, and that becomes who we are, that becomes our identity, that becomes the default when we're under tons of stress. All the virtues help out with that. And of course, making those hard calls. And sometimes there's no right answer. I have a friend who made a decision. He disobeyed an order to go reinforce an outpost because he thought it was more likely his soldiers who hadn't slept in well over a day would go off the road and be unable to fight when they got there anyway, and there wasn't a real threat that he could understand. So he made the decision, no, we're sleeping for 4 hours, and then we'll get up and go there. I did my own risk assessment. Well, 2 hours later, the outpost got hit and overrun as they drove, and heard their buddies dying. But it's hard. Given the information he had, his squadron commander supported him, even though it turned out horribly. And that's just the nature. And so, as he's unpacked that over the many years, the more you understand yourself, which comes from conscious character development, the more you understand that in life there are trade-offs. We're making trade-offs all the time. A lot of times we don't see them. In war, the stakes are magnified enormously. The complexity is magnified. The more that we've taken in and understand that all I can ever do in life is the best I can in this time, in this situation, with the virtues I've intentionally built up, and I think we can live with ourselves. The alternative to character education is being a rule follower, in that I'm going to follow these rules in war or these principles. And as a recent brigade commander told me over dinner recently, kind of shocked me. I don't know, we were talking about this stuff, we talk about it all the time. He reached across, grabbed my shoulder, and goes, Pete, there are no rules in war. There are no rules in war. There are no rules in war except the ones the leaders enforce. I was like, yeah, right? And what I ran through, 540 some interviews, very few units, and I heard this a lot, hey, sir, we're not at Benning anymore. That's why we beat our detainees. Like, no. Very few units can do things just like the classroom, but it's the leaders who decide in this situation, are some things acceptable, or maybe in this situation, or in this environment here, but it should never go down there. So, but the point he was making is, if we're just saying it's the rules, a lot of times people are going to say, and I heard this a lot, hey, sir, it's war, rules don't apply. Look, in this situation, the rules didn't apply well. In this situation, the rules didn't apply well. Yeah, they didn't. But it doesn't mean that the fundamental values and principles, right, don't apply. They still do. They just didn't match to the rules in that situation. So the more we understand that, I think the more we can be resilient when we make our best decisions and fail, or even when we just fail. And we understand that, you know, we're human beings, and then part of performance character is being able to bounce back up. So that's the end of my comments. How much time do we have for any comments from Q&A? We got time. So someone make me feel good and give me a comment, question, anything that came to mind, push back. I love hard questions. That's the only way you get better at things. Just stand up and belt it out, I think. Yes, I'll repeat it. So the question is, war is going to push us really beyond to our abilities, even sometimes abilities to think clearly, where we're going to break down. What do I say at that? Just listening to your question made me think, we should have the spiritual virtues in here. We need to be able to forgive others. Our buddies are going to let us down sometime. We need to be able to forgive ourselves. We need to recognize the limits of our humanity. And so I think if that's what you were getting, I think that's a good case. And so I'm very open, and I know we have a couple days to think, what are some of the spiritual virtues? So it's funny, I got an email 2 days ago, you know, from a peer who's just working out in business, and he was saying, we need, not necessarily religious, but we need to work spiritual virtues, because that meaning in life and what the real purpose of life is, that probably undergirds everything else we do, especially when it gets difficult. Yeah. All right, who else? Who's going to be brave? Who's courageous and a critical thinker? Who? Former student of mine in philosophy.
Training, personal training of values. How do we create that environment for the units that will lead?
I think the first thing when you're thinking the cult sought is setting the example, right? And so, really struck that, you know, the only in the Christian scriptures, the only people that Jesus just lays into, I think that's getting deep into human psychology, that the first step, and the general alluded to it this morning, is setting the example for all of your people. And I think once you set the example, then you become a role model, and then they're very open. And if you're a person of good character, then you have the empathy and the respect for them, and you've set the conditions to have the kind of relationship to create the culture where that builds. It is, I mean, I hope everybody knows this, the character of the leader is incredibly important. It's not just to help us do the right thing, because especially officers, NCOs, you're going to give orders, and soldiers are going to kill people. And they're not really going to understand why that was right. What they're going to rely on, and I've heard this, because I would say, all right, you killed these people. Why was that right? Was that the right thing to do? And people say, I don't know, but we always do the right thing. I don't know, but I trust, whatever. And so the idea that their unit does the right thing becomes like a protective piece for their conscience. I've also heard people say, why do you think it was right to kill him? It's not right. Man, war is just so effed up. There's nothing right here. We're just trying to survive. And you could tell that those people were deeply disturbed. And that comes out in the MHAT-7, some of the research done in Iraq, where they asked about the ethical climate and their confidence in their leaders and their mental health afterwards. So all of this stuff, this isn't just about you. Who you are is affecting others. Character is caught, so you're affecting them that way, but also because we're in an organization where we follow our leaders and people can't ask why all the time, they have to trust. How they see you act all the time creates the conditions to feel okay when you ask them to do things that they don't understand.
Dr. Kilner,
I think
we have time for one more question.
All right, one more. Doesn't have to be a question. Can be a comment.
I'll give you one.
Okay.
Would you ask me to
that up, right? Competence and character have to work together. I would argue it's character. Good character helps you be more competent, right? Because good character is being a continuous learner, being curious, having the discipline to train yourself. But we all know that there are people who are really good with performance or intellectual virtues and military skills who don't really exhibit the moral and the civic. Not an either or, that competence is absolutely important. When you look at trust, I did some research in Afghanistan on trust, and they looked at honesty was the most important, but competence incredibly important, reliability, and the word compassion. Now, when I joined the Army, I think compassion was one of the 5 C's. Here's an interesting thing, and I'll end on this. We asked, I was going around asking, but other people were doing the same. How important is on your leader, 1 to 10, or for you to be able to trust him? How important is competence, honesty, reliability, and compassion? For leaders, looking at their peers, compassion scored pretty low. For leaders, saying, can you trust your subordinate? Do they have to be compassionate for you? Very, very low. When people are saying, how can you trust your own leader? Compassion was really high. And so what it shows is we need our leaders to know that we're human beings, that we'll make mistakes, that we have problems, that we have family problems, that we have bad days, and give us a little grace. So compassion is interesting. We don't need it from our subordinates, but we need it, from our bosses. So on that note, thank you all for your attention, and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Dr. Kilner, for your presentation. At this time, we will take a 15-minute break as we prepare for our next presenter, Lieutenant Colonel retired David Grossman. Please be back in your seats at 10:30. Good morning, and welcome back to the Preparing the Soul for War Symposium. Our next speaker is Lieutenant Colonel retired Dave Grossman. He is an airborne Ranger infantry officer and a prior service sergeant and paratrooper with a total of over 23 years experience in leading United States soldiers worldwide, including service at the United States Military Academy as a psychology professor and professor of military science. His research and studies have focused on an emerging field, killology. Lieutenant Colonel Grossman has greatly contributed to our understanding of killing in war, the psychological costs of war, the root causes of the current virus of violent crime, and the process of healing the victims of violence in war and peace. He is an internationally recognized scholar, author, soldier, and speaker who is one of the world's foremost experts in the field of human aggression and the roots of violence and violent crime. Please join us in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel retired Dave Grossman.
Well, thank you, Chaplain. Well, I appreciate that intro. Whoever he's talking about needs to go get a life. Yeah. Hey, I'm Dave. All those good things. That's me. Yeah. I want to start the day with a question, and we'll come back to it. What is the opposite of evil? Well, let's start by defining evil up front. Yeah, good books. I recommend On Combat, then On Spiritual Combat, puts it all together. What is going to happen to us in the years to come? What is the next terrorist attack going to look like? Now, I'm a cop, a reserve cop. Cops are good at predicting future behavior based on past behavior. And if we predict what the bad guy's going to do, what they're most likely to do is come kill our kids. In Pakistan, the Taliban sent a message. You cooperate with America, we'll do this to you every day. 141 dead, entire school wiped out. The next day, every school in Pakistan was shut. In a few months, there was a regime change that did not go in our favor. They don't hurt you. They kill your kids. They don't piss in your water. They don't sprinkle doo-doo over your skies. They come kill your kids. Now, the Taliban, again, just stay with them, let alone Hamas and Hezbollah. Folks, in 2009 alone, 613 times the Taliban attacked their own kids and their own schools in their own nation. You think they won't do it to us? This is a price of failure right here. And folks, around the world, they want to hurt you. They'll come kill your kids. And what might be coming down the road is daycare massacres and nursery massacres. Now, we've seen Boko Haram across northern Africa, and over 1,000 times they've hit daycares and schools across northern Africa. That very name, Boko Haram, Boko means book. Pretty much any book beside the Quran. Haram is forbidden, evil, sinful. The most common translation of Boko Haram is Western schooling is evil. It should be destroyed and wiped out. Now, we see it multiple times across China. We see attacks on our nurseries and our daycares. Here we are in Belgium. A creche is a European word for nursery or daycare. And then we got last year in Brazil with an axe and 4 dead. And folks, those are just with knives and an axe. But what they got coming down the road is vehicles and weapons of mass murder. And folks, if you were going to plow through those kids in front of the school, if you're going to plow through those kids, what route would you take? You block that route. Move those kids now. Because folks, they don't want to just hurt your kids. They especially want to hurt the kids and people outside our bases. They come back here while we're over there, and they hit the daycares and the schools. And again, if we predict future behavior based on past behavior, now here we got in China, this just last November, 35 dead with a vehicle in China. And then New Year's Day, 14 dead in New Orleans. How? With a vehicle. And that's how easy it is to destroy a way of life, to take an entire school hostage. Now, once again, we look at what's going on. Here we are in Italy. An immigrant bus driver hijacked a bus load of 51 children, soaked them all with gas. One of the kids on the bus said he was praying to Allah. The kid was actually on his phone contacting their equivalent of 911. Now, the Israelis were brilliant. I mean, the Italians were brilliant. They had a roadblock and fire trucks everywhere. Now, not a single kid died. Many badly wounded. But folks, that's a European bus. Everybody, bust the windows, yank kids out the windows. An American bus, the windows would be too high. I train cops in all 50 states. I'm the only law enforcement trainer that's ever been certified in all 50 states. I tell them this is happening, and go online. Look up Italian school bus hijack. That says, why in the hell do we not know about this? And folks, I train our nation's largest fire department. I was there this Monday. Monday night, I spent at Newark Airport because the flights were all canceled. Rolled out my sleeping bag and air mattress. 68 years old, sleeping on the floor. A little sleeping mattress and sleeping bag, rocking on. And 6 months after this incident, our nation's largest fire department, never heard of them. I had the head of the counterterrorism division. I never heard of it. Again, doing your own research, Italian school bus hijack. And folks, this is what I would define as evil. So folks, I want to bring a message from a young Special Forces sergeant about a month after 9/11. I retired in 97. And about a month after 9/11, I was training the first batch of spec ops headed off to Afghanistan. A young Special Forces sergeant came up to me. He said, Colonel, we're going to Afghanistan. We're going to kick their ass. He said, while we're there, you tell all those cops you teach, don't let them come kill my kids. Don't let those bastards come hurt my kids while we're there. I've been passing on that message ever since 9/11, well over 20 years. Early on, a crusty old Chicago police sergeant came up to me. He said, hear the message. He said, Colonel, you tell those kids, we got their six, we got their back. We can't be everywhere. He said, you hunt the bastards down over there. We'll do the best we can over here. And every day this doesn't happen is a victory. Every day it doesn't happen is a victory. My war was the Cold War. Came in 74. 1975, April, Private E2 Grossman staggered into airborne school. 50 years ago. And folks, when we talk about evil, my war was the Cold War. Our great achievement was the Russians ever came across that border, yeah? In many ways, our greatest achievement is that this never happens. And you want the bastards down over there? I'm telling my cops to do everything they can over here. And every day it doesn't happen, it's a victory. And you believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. So folks, I submit to you the opposite of evil is interesting. Now, the opposite of evil is love. Men die in combat, men and women die because they love the people next to them more than life itself. And folks, when we talk about the opposite of evil, we defeat evil with love. Now here's the key. I'm 68 years old. By any measure, I'm probably the oldest person in the room, but I put a big trunk. I spent Monday night on the concrete floor at Newark Airport, and got home on Tuesday, headed back out Wednesday. And waiting at home for me is my bride of 49 years, high school sweetheart. It was April of 1975 that I was here in airborne school. I went to 82nd Airborne Division. My high school sweetheart came here, and we got married. It'll be 50 years in July. She was 15. I was 17 when I proposed to her. We are from Arkansas. Yeah. 2 years later, she married a crazy Army paratrooper. Been this ride with me for 49, almost 50 years. I love her more than life itself. But I roll out that door and do what I do, 2, 3, 4 cities a day, 2, 3, 4 cities a week. And I leave behind my bride. I get home 1, maybe 2 nights a week, conjugal visit, clean underwear, back in the room. Because you see, the only thing on earth more precious than my bride are children, our grandchildren. I got a grandson who's in Kuwait right now. He's an Intel guy, smart kid. Went Intel, warm, dry place to sleep every night. Yeah. Air conditioning, yeah. But my grandson's over in that fight now. I got a son who retired last year after 9 combat tours, 3 Bronze Stars. He came home just in time for his first baby, our 3rd grandchild to be born. I told him it's good to be there when the kid is born, yeah? It's even better, be there when the kid is conceived, yeah? Little piece of hard-earned Arkansas wisdom for you there, eh? You know what's best of all? You know what's best of all? Is for that baby to grow up in a safe and secure nation. That's what a daddy's fighting for. And you believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. And so I love my children, and that's why I'm on the road. I love my grandchildren. I love my God. I love my nation. And love means the worse it gets, harder you fight. You understand? Why are you here? Ain't doing it for the money, huh? Why the hell are you here? I submit to you that love, as we love our nation, as we love our God, as we love our way of life, we walk out the door and we give 100%. You understand? And love means the worse it gets, harder you fight. And things are bad. Things are crazy bad. Give credit to the administration. When the fall of Afghanistan, they flat said the terrorist attack is the greatest been since 9/11. And the threat just keeps growing. We don't know where they're going. We don't know what they're doing, or we would stop it. But you hunt them down over there. We'll do the best we can over here. And you believe in who you are. What's the opposite of evil? How do we fight evil? Yeah. Love for our children, love for God, love for our way of life. And you know what else? It might just be the love of the children in a distant land. And you look at those children and say, what about my kids? What about my town? What about my spouse? You see, empathy is love in action. Empathy is love with their shoes on. And what makes a great warrior, what makes a great soldier, what makes a great cop is empathy. What if that was my kid being slaughtered? What if that was my spouse? What if this is my hometown? And folks, we fight, and we sacrifice, and we suck. If need be, we kill. If need be, we die. So our children need not. And that's why you're here. That's what it's all about. I love what the last speaker said. We kill bad people to make the world a better place. You understand? And that's a worthy and necessary endeavor. When we talk about all that, I want you to understand a question. And you're going to hear this question. And as a leader, it is absolutely essential that you have the answer ready to go. How, when bad things happen, you ask the question, how could a loving God allow these terrible things to happen? And that's an existential question. It's powerful. And the answer is very simple. It's terribly important. We are not God's puppets. A loving God would not manipulate everything that happens every day. In the end, we all die. Does that mean God fails? No. You see, in the end, God loved us enough to die for us. And he said, a new commandment I give you, to love one another as I have loved you. Do you understand? And it's key, it's important here to understand this. You ever heard if you really love something, let it go? If it comes back, it's yours. That's how much God loves us. He loves us enough to let us make our own decision. That means a lot of people make really bad decisions. A lot of bad things happen. He said, "God, why don't you do something?" He said, "I did. I sent you." And that's your mission. And bad things are going to happen. And you understand, don't curse God when he doesn't answer your prayers the way you think he should. Now, if you're a person of faith, and if you think there might be a life after this life, then it is infinitely more important than anything that happens in this world. You with me? In the end, everybody will die physically. In the end, every nation will fall over my dead body. In the end, our sun will go out. But eternity continues. And if you're a person of faith, you keep your eye on the big picture, hear me? Do not let the things of this world pull you down. Because what's really important is in eternity in heaven. And if you think there's a God, you think there's eternity, then you got to play the game by his rules, you understand? You don't get to dictate the rules here. God told us what the rule is and the path to salvation, hear me? And you got to play the game by his rules. If you don't know those rules, the chaplain will help you, get you on the right path. But recognize the fact that what you do is noble and worthy and honorable. And you hear about, oh, thou shalt not kill. Well, thou shalt not kill is a weak translation taken grossly out of context. You shall not murder, is what it says. Every Jewish translation of the original Hebrew, you shall not murder. All but one of the modern translations, shall not murder. Thou shalt not kill came from the King James Bible, year 1611. Want to stick with the 400-year-old translation? Go to Matthew 19:18. Jesus running through the commandments, and Jesus says, thou shalt do no murder. In your mind, is there a difference between the lawful use of deadly force and hunting down our enemies? Is there a difference between that and the slaughter of children? So let me tell you what the Taliban's already been around the block and what we think is most likely to happen. You see, Russia was in Afghanistan for 10 years, just like us. And Russia left, just like us. And they followed them home. And what they did was they took an entire school hostage. They were denied any water, any food, any bathroom privileges. About 400 people trapped in the middle school gym. Now, middle school in Russia means first grade to 11th grade. You ever seen one of those gyms where you go 6 inches out of bounds, you hit the wall? That's a gym where about 400 kids, they caught them on the first day of school, and they herded them like cattle into the gym. Mommies were there, babies were there. No water, no food for 3 days. It's a school. There's water and food and bathroom facilities everywhere. It was death to get a drink. On the third day, they were mad with thirst. They were insane with thirst. Nobody in this room has gone 24 hours without a drop of hydration. What's it feel like on the third day? Well, here's what it feels like. On the first day, they're crapping and pissing in their shoes, has somewhere to put it. On the third day, they're sucking up that 3-year-old puddle of piss on top of the shit. They have something moist in their mouth. They're mad with thirst. Now, the Russian spec ops were fully on scene, just started arriving on the morning of the third day. Somebody should have been monitoring and jamming every cell phone frequency, every radio, because, of course, they had people on the perimeter. And let them know the Russian spec ops is here. A huge bomb was strapped to the basketball backboards. On the morning of the third day, one of the bombs went off, blasting kids out the window. 6 seconds later, the other bomb on the other backboard went off, blasting more kids out the windows. The Russian spec ops had just arrived. They didn't have a plan, didn't have body armor, didn't have helmets, but they went in a helter-skelter mass assault from every direction. When the smoke finally cleared, 333 dead, most of them children. I'll tell you, that's evil. I'll tell you, that's what we're fighting. And you believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. Because you are a true global force for good. You're a true human shield of flesh and blood and cold steel that stands between evil and our children. And you understand that our purpose here is to love our children, to love our way of life, to love other nations, and to lay our life on the line for that. Who is there? Who is there? Jesus said, a new commandment I give you, to love others as I have loved you. Well, he loved us enough to die for us. Who else is willing to walk out that door and die for us? You. You understand? You. You manifest the greatest of all loves, is that willingness to lay your life down for others. And you believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. So folks, our superpower is love. As we love our God, as we love our families, we love our nation, we walk out that door and give 100%. Now, let's talk about stress inoculation. I train all of our spec cops and all the cops, and the cops are in the fight every day. They're out there putting their life on the line. 2023 was the all-time record number of cops shot in the line of duty. And they're out there in the suck in the fight every day. And how do we prepare for combat? They're all over it. And so we do force-on-force engagements and other things. But here's the key. You got to weave smell into your training. You are not properly preparing your troops if you don't have smell. Rip open a human body. What's it smell like? Shit, vomit, piss, blood. That's the smell of death. So somebody take a crap in a bucket, put the lid on it. Okay, piss in a bucket, put the lid on it. Blood, we can go to the stockyard, get some of that. Vomit, sodium butyrate. You buy it cheap at the supplement store, sodium butyrate. One guy wrote a review on it, said, one of these vomit-smelling beauties every day, and I'm ready to rock and roll, yeah? Now, there's one other sense. You see, I want you to understand that smell, in many ways, is the most powerful and primal of all senses. An amoeba only has two senses. Chemical receptors, smell. Taste and smell, chemical receptors, and pressure, feel. The most fundamental of all senses is smell, chemical receptors. And when we do that realistic training, we do that. And one other smell is the rancid, rotten smell of rotting, decayed bodies. And so we just leave some hamburger and a couple of chicken wings out there in the sun. Wait for the maggots are all over it, and it's nice and juicy, and then put a lid on it. And then you open those buckets as you do that training. And then you've really, truly prepared them. But there's one last component. Yeah, that pile of piss and blood, that's your friend. He just died 5 minutes ago. What are you going to do? If you quit, then they win. They killed your friend to stop you from doing your mission. And if you do not roll out that door and give 100%, your friend died for nothing. Hear me? So prepare yourself. And prepare yourself for the worst that could happen. Don't want to be the lone survivor. Go on to accomplish the mission, you hear me? And train your folks and prepare your folks and move the envelope to better and better, more realistic training. But folks, one other thing I want to show you here. This man called Officer Greg Stevens in May of 2015. The Draw of the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival outside of Dallas, Texas. In the eyes of Islam, the Draw of the Prophet is a terrible crime. Officer Greg Stevens has been a cop for 37 years. He's 59 years old. He had the security in the South Gate for this Draw of the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival. The FBI says this is the first ISIS-directed attack on American soil. These two idiots came up on the ramp. They said, we want to die for the cause. What do we do? They said, go right outside a little suburb of Dallas, the Draw of the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival, kill them all. They rolled out of the vehicle. They had body armor. They had rifles. They had the element of surprise. and a 59-year-old traffic cop with a pistol killed them both. Over 30 rounds of rifle fire fired at Greg Stevens. They didn't hit once. He's hitting back with virtually every shot. They had body armor. They had rifles. They had the element of surprise. And they died. And nobody else died that day. It could have been the Pulse nightclub times 2. Remember the Pulse nightclub? Yeah, it could have been times 2. But Officer Greg Stevens had the honor to co-present with him many times. He said, I believe God put his hand on my shoulder. He said, I'll take care of you, but you got to take care of them. And Greg Stevens says, you know, every time the range was open, ammo was available, I was there. Mostly once a month, he was on the range. 37 years on the range. How much golf could he have done? How much time could he have spent with his loved ones during that time, yeah? But he says, for 37 years, I made a steady deposit in his savings account. In May of 2015, I made a major withdrawal. How's your account looking? Are you pissing your time away? Are you pissing your money away? Or preparing for your moment of truth, yeah? You know, it's neat to see the OCS guys here, because it was 1978 that Sergeant Grossman staggered back into this post for OCS. And then infantry officer basic and ranger school. And it does me well to see it. All those out there, you believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. And you've got to be ready to answer that fundamental question. How could a loving God allow these terrible things to happen? You understand? The answer is, he gives us the freedom to make our own decisions. He loves us enough to let us go and see if they'll come back. And you say, why don't God do something? He said, he did, he sent you. Now, that is a fundamental material you need to prepare. And I'm always about the short and fast answer. You're going to get a lot of good info. But thou shalt not kill is a weak translation, taken grossly out of context. You shall not murder. And the context is there over and over again. All this I told you about there is in my book on combat. But folks, I introduced the concept of the sheepdog. I got the U.S. government trademark for the term sheepdog as a protector. Anybody want to use it? I give them a letter suitable for framing and put it out there. What we know about this is most people are sheep. And then there's a wolf. We'll feed on the sheep without mercy. Now, if you have no propensity for violence, then you're a decent, law-abiding, nonviolent citizen. If you have an absence of empathy and a propensity for violence, you have a sociopath, a psychopath, a wolf. Violence without empathy. But what if you had a love for your fellow citizens? Now, what if you desire to use that love and use those skills? So you got the capacity for violence combined with love, and we'll call that the sheepdog. Now, Viktor Frankl, we studied the first step in resiliency, I call the bulletproof mind. The first step is motivation. To know that your sacrifice for a noble and worthy purpose. And we covered that, right? First step is motivation. The second step is motivation turned into action. Identify the things you can do and do them. That's motivation turned into action. Prepare yourself, mind, body, and spirit. You know, one of my recent books came out. We got on killing, on combat, on spiritual combat, and boom, on hunting. It's been a great little book, but you cannot understand combat. You cannot understand killing until you understand hunting. And folks, we'll tell you in a minute or so about the fact that in combat, you have auditory exclusion. People don't hear the shot. And their ears don't ring. Now, you're still getting hearing loss. But I ask any hunter, hey, did you hear the shot? No. You tell them about it? No. Everybody lives in a little one-person silo. Nobody ever said, hey, the shack's up muted. Yeah. But folks, the only place where these combat dynamics, like not hearing the shots, happen somewhere else, hunting, the only place it happens. You know, my 7-year-old grandson, He's deployed now, right? Not so little anymore. But he came out to deer camp, and I was 7 years old. Got to go to deer camp out of school for a week, grubby and dirty, came home. His mom said, "What'd you like the best?" He said, "Cutting the deer." For a 7-year-old boy, what's inside that deer is fascinating. This is the liver, and these are the kidneys, and there's the heart, and there's the lungs. You got the same stuff inside you, and you smell the same inside. And we took the back strap off, we slapped it on the grill, had a little barbecue, and right there, that deer was food in your stomach. And I believe the single best way to prepare combat is hunting for many reasons. Don't hunt, think about it. But the point is, you've made the decision, all of you should have made the decision to be the sheepdog, be the hunter. And throughout the history of our species, we've been in the middle of the food chain. Folks, the British government in India says that between 1900 and 1910, over 100,000 people were killed by tigers. In that one decade, 100,000. India still loses about 500 a year to tigers. We're in the middle of the food chain. We have the forward set eyes of a predator. We have the gripping fangs of a predator. We also have the chiseled teeth of a rabbit and the grinding molars of a grass eater. And so we can be the prey. We crap ourselves and run like hell. But it ain't no fun, you understand? Ain't no fun to be the prey. We don't want to be the hunted. We want to be the hunter. A lot of people in our world have decided to be the hunted. They've chosen to be the prey. They're sheep. They're just gentle, kind, decent citizens. And when the wolf shows up, they're in big trouble. There's not a sheepdog there, you understand? You don't have to hunt. You got to embrace that dynamic. I am not the hunted. I am the hunter. And I hunt men. I hunt down bad people so the world can be a better place, you understand? And so this dynamic of being in the middle of the food chain and deciding whether you're a predator or prey is really, really a key point of it. I want to tell you something else that happens. Bad thoughts pop in your head all the time. You can't let go of the bad memories. That is a survival mechanism. Hey, Joe died over there, and we don't go there no more. Yeah? Tiger's over there, we don't go there no more. And that made me sick, and I ain't gonna eat that no more. You understand? It's a survival mechanism to remember the things that went wrong. But it ain't no fun. You got to recognize, A, you're normal, and B, there's something to do about it. It's to confront it and kick it out. Now, I pray. Every time that pops up, say, God, protect me and save me and guide me. I knew enough without you. And drive on. But recognize that all human beings share that same dynamic. And it's a survival mechanism, but it's a pain in the rear. You understand? And my answer is to go to the Lord in prayer right now. To go to the Lord right now, right now. And so, folks, here's the heart of it. Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi death camp, wrote a couple of big books, a couple of good books. Now, we study people who do not get PTSD. And it's really important. That's what we call resiliency. And we talk about people who do not get PTSD. On the top of the list is probably Viktor Frankl in a Nazi death camp, enduring unthinkable evil, a human skeleton. He walked out of that death camp and he would not have PTSD. He said, now here's the critical point. He said, I realized the only thing in the universe those Nazi bastards can control is how I choose to respond. The only thing in the universe you can control is yourself. And if we give way to bitterness or cynicism or complacency, that's the one thing you can control. You get in the world of victory open-handed with your own hands. Here's the key now. Lock onto this. Don't let go of it. You do not lose your temper. You give it away. It's the only thing in the world you can control. To paraphrase Viktor Frankl, it's a big game. You lose your temper, you lose the game. That's easy to say. It ain't so easy to do. But the first step is understanding that nobody admires us, nobody respects it, nobody thinks it's cool when you have your temper tantrum. They admire your calm. Now, we're all human. We lose it, do a better job the next time. So a lot of what we're talking about here falls under the autonomic nervous system. And I taught at West Point. I think I'm the only OCS guy there. I might be one of the few OCS guys ever to teach at West Point. Pretty cool place. And the top psych minds, the top middle minds, put their heads together. What do we want to know about psychology? And the top of the list is this sympathetic nervous system. And it's usually referred to as fight or flight, right? Sympathetic nervous system. Then the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, both of these fall under what we call the autonomic nervous system. They're autonomic. They're not under conscious control. Fight or flight. And this parasympathetic is often called feed and breed. They call it the 4 Fs. The function of the autonomic nervous system can be defined as the 4 Fs. Fight, flight, feed, and reproduction. So folks, we told the cadets, think of your body. Think of your body like a military unit. When you're asleep, a unit's on stand down. You don't have a guard. See, these are the folks in the front lines with the rifle. These are the cooks and clerks and mechanics on the other side. When you sleep at night, you're helpless. You don't have a guard at the front gate. And you're in this parasympathetic nervous dynamic becomes ascendant. Now you wake up in the morning, and what happens? Well, you attain what we call homeostasis. Got a little good place in between. You wake up in the morning, and you got the folks in the front lines with the rifle, maintenance folks doing their job, back to bed that night. You wake up the next morning, you rock it on, and somebody tries to kill you. Boom! Total sympathetic nervous system arousal. Digestion, we don't need no stinker digestion. Blow the ballast. You know, one survey in World War II, 20% of the veterans of intense combat would admit they crapped themselves. Those ones that admit it. One World War II vet told me to say, hey, you know, 20% they admitted it. The other 80% were liars. That's what he said. Not for us to say. But 1 out of 5 the kids in World War II crapped themselves. If half of them pissed themselves, could it happen to us? Yeah, and that's a total shutdown by parasympathetic processes. And it's also called feed and breed, also called rest and digest. Now, folks, you got on that roller coaster ride, and then boom, you crash. Napoleon said, the moment of greatest vulnerability is immediately after victory. The greatest vulnerability immediately after victory. Wow, you let your guard down. But it's more than just letting your guard down. It's a biological crash, and you can't get back up again. How do we prevent people from crashing prematurely? Well, we train all the way through. Ranger School is the ultimate example. You roll into mission after mission after mission. You know, you're in a simulator, bad guys down, let's talk about it. No. Hey, you're a cop, your job's just begun. You got to provide first aid, identify witnesses, secure evidence, call for backup. Your job's just begun. You sweep through the objective and secured the building, bad guys are in. Are you done? No, 360 security. Somebody's got to do search and medical. We got ammo, casualty equipment, we drive on. Train all the way through. How do you not go on that roller coaster ride? That's important. We're going to talk about that. But here's the key. When you went on that roller coaster ride, a neural network was established. A set of neurons. I call this the puppy. And the puppy blows a hole through the screen door. And a neural network is established. A week later, a random gut shot goes off, you don't expect it, and boom, you're on that ride again. That is not PTSD. How you deal with re-experiencing it will decide whether or not it becomes PTSD. Arkansas State Trooper, first gunfight, bad guy's down, he's alive, happy ending to the story. He said, a week out of my first gunfight, I'm sitting in the bleachers with my wife at a swim meet. What do you suppose pushed his button? He said, a startle supposed to went off when I didn't expect it. Boom, heart's pounding, gasping for air, drenched with sweat. His wife thought he was having a heart attack. He didn't know what was happening. Now, that puppy came for a visit. That neural network was established. A re-experience the event. It's normal. What if you said, oh, hey, I can never go to the range again. I hate 4th of July. I can't stand hold on. I gotta stay away from loud noises. You will literally drive yourself crazy trying to not think about it. You gotta make peace with the memory. Gotta separate the memory from the emotions. A lot of talk about PTSD out there, but folks, when we talk about the dynamics, the DSM, the Bible of psychiatrists, psychologists, they do a pretty good job of nailing down PTSD. Hey, come up, put dibs on these you want. I'll sign them for you. And first off, let's understand this. No pity party. Hollywood loves the pity party. The tormented, haunted veteran comes home from the war scarred for life. There are people like that, but they're rare. You must understand the vast majority come out the other end with post-traumatic growth. You've all heard of post-traumatic stress. Far more important is post-traumatic growth. Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us only makes us what? And Nietzsche stole that from the Bible. Almost 2,000 years for Nietzsche, Romans chapter 5, we glory in tribulation. For tribulation work of patience, patience experience hope, and hope make it not ashamed. He stole that from the idea of being stronger from the bad things, not a new idea. The pity party, waving the victim card, that's a new idea. You don't want nothing to do with it. Have a positive, self-fulfilling prophecy. Anybody heard about 22 veterans a day take their life? Yeah, that's pretty much true. But most of those people were 60, 70, 80-year-old men who were drafted and got out. They're a veteran. They served 2 years. And they come to every suicide's a tragedy. But suicide among the elderly is a completely different story. Now, those 22 veterans a day take their life. Most of them served for 2 years during the Cold War, got out, they're veterans. And their death is a tragedy. But Elvis Presley was a veteran. Elvis was drafted. Elvis served 2 years. He got out. If Elvis was alive, and if Elvis took his life, he'd be one of those 22 veterans a day, you understand? It's a lie. It's a lie of omission. They're all victims of this war, and the war, they all commit suicide. Well, that does happen, but it's rare. And that 22 veterans a day, I submit to you, it's a lie. It's a lie of omission. They want you to think veterans of this war, when the truth is just the opposite. Every suicide's a tragedy. But folks, the vast, vast majority did not commit PTSD. Did not commit suicide. The vast, vast majority did not have PTSD, they have post-traumatic growth. Now, the other Hollywood myth is no pity party, and the other Hollywood myth is the macho man. Macho man, or the macho gal, plenty of them out there. It was an old Miami detective. It was 26 years ago. I first started on the road. The old detective came up to me and said, Colonel, you tell these kids, don't be the macho man. He said, I got my shooting, it's eat me alive. He said, I tried to macho it out. He said, 2 years later, I was living in hell. I'm about to lose my family, lose my kids, lose my job. I was losing my mind. Finally, after 2 years of hell, just before the divorce, my wife convinced me to go get help. 2 months later, it was all over. 2 years of hell, I could have hit it any time. We're really, really good at treating PTSD, but you got to tell us. And when you come out the other end, you've got post-traumatic growth. You understand? So, folks, we got this dynamic. No pity party, yeah? No macho man. What we got is a balancing act between those two. And balance is hard. But go in there with a positive, self-fulfilling prophecy. And if there is a problem, deal with it. And have confidence you come out the end stronger. Oh, y'all saw the movie Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell? Maybe read the book? Marcus Luttrell has a podcast called Team Never Quit. I was on his podcast quite a while back, and he gave me permission to talk about him. I never talked about it on camera. You see, I trained his unit before and after that incident. Marcus Luttrell, Navy SEAL, his entire team is wiped out, and he's captured and he's tortured. Very, very bad things happened to Marcus Luttrell when he was captured. He was rescued, and his doc told me, you see, we talk about PTSD like weight. You know, stress is a word the shrink stole from the engineering world. And stress really means the same thing. How much of a load do you have? Is it debilitating? As Doc said, Marcus Luttrell came back from that incident 500 pounds PTSD, totally debilitated. The doc said, here we are a year later, he's 50 pounds PTSD. And he wanted to deploy again with the unit. He did, it was a good thing. I told him at the time, look how far you've come in just the last year. The doc tells me a year ago you were 500 pounds PTSD. Remember those days? Look at the progress you've made. Have confidence you can come farther. Anytime you tell somebody, look at the progress you've made, have confidence you can come farther. Today, Marcus Luttrell tells us he is 100% post-traumatic stress-free and stronger from the experience. Now, one of the complications is the traumatic brain injury, TBI. Now, in World War I, they thought it was shell shock, concussions. And then World War II happened. Oh, no, it's battle fatigue. Well, it's both. For the first time in history, we're studying both post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. Now, think about TBI. Just one note on that. When there's a concussion, the brain swells. And there's room to swell. It's made for that. But if there's another concussion, it's got nowhere to go. So one of the things to remember about traumatic brain injury is that second concussion. And put somebody out in the fight who's been concussed, you're taking a risk. Every player sits on the bench for a play or two. And we pace ourselves with a long game. Well, folks, we re-experience the event. That is not PTSD. We'll come back to that. We'll spend some time about that and the tools we have to prevent that. But let's talk about one other thing. We have been trained to kill people. We are the best killers on the planet. Now, every warrior society had to face the same dilemma. We take our young warriors, we teach them to kill. We give them the tools to kill. We send them to distant land and they kill. Now bring them home. What is to stop them from using their skills on everybody else? And every warrior society has found the same solution. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Now folks, whatever the standard is, we enforce it. Do you understand? We don't care what our freaking hair looks like some freaky, fleeking fashion model. We submit to authority and cut the hair the way we're supposed to be. Do you understand? Whatever the standard is, we enforce it. And that's the safeguard. And if you can't submit your will to authority about goofy little things like how you wear your hair and how you dress, then give up on submitting your will to authority, on teaching people to kill and never using that skill. I want you to understand, grooming standards, uniform standards, they're there for a really, really important reason. Every warrior society had distinctive haircuts and distinctive clothing. And we got to play this game by the rules, you understand? And so recognize that the safeguard is discipline. Now, pop quiz. Oh no, nobody said there'd be a test. Identify the sheepdog in this photograph. Now look at this kid. I love this kid. Sheepdog strident. That kid is a survivor. Now here's the same kid, the same situation, a split second later. The flock is in full stampede. The sheepdog strides toward the danger. That little guy, he knows good cover when he sees it. You know what's better than a ballistic plate between you and the bad guy? 2 ballistic plates. Camelback human body between you and the bad guy. You know, the sad little people say, oh, one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter. They're no different than us, they're just on the other side. Baloney. That little boy can tell the difference, you understand? I believe courage and honor will defeat hate and fear every time. I believe in truth, justice, the American way. I believe it will defeat crime and violence. I believe in the redeeming power of love. And I believe men and women are willing to put their life on the line for others. Is the greatest of all loves, do you understand? Jesus said, a new commandment I give you, to love one another as I have loved you. Now, we're not all called to die, but we are all called to serve. And sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. Sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. Walk out that door and give it 100%. Do a dirty, dangerous, thankless job to the utmost of your ability, because you know if nobody did it, we will be damned and doomed. And so we dedicate ourselves to being the sheepdog, being the protector, to embracing the role of the protector, and not to be the prey, and to prepare ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. The vast, vast majority do not commit PTSD. The vast majority do not take their lives. They have post-traumatic growth. The ones who do have PTSD, we deal with it coming out the other end with post-traumatic growth. So we introduce all of that in the Sheepdog Kids book. Kind of fun. The kids really get into that. We wrap our mind around it. And the whole essay on sheep, the wolf, and the sheepdog is in here at the end. And all that's in my book on combat. But let me just tie up now in this last half hour or so with the most important stuff I have to give you. I think what we had so far has got value. But my book on combat was translated in Ukrainian. And last January, it won the Ukrainian Book of the Year award. The Ukrainian government, along with my publisher, brought me out to Ukraine last year. And across May and June, I was training Ukrainian troops. Now, you got to respect my bride of 49 years who sent her 68-year-old husband to the war zone for summer vacation. Yeah? But folks, I got a grandson deployed to Kuwait right now. I got a son who just retired after 9 combat tours. I look at these magnificent men and women sitting in front of me. This brutal, brutal war, they've lost far more in just a couple of years in Vietnam. They've lost far more than Korea, a much smaller nation. And then this meat grinder of a war. What can I give them? What can I give them in an hour? And cut down to even less with translation problems. What can I give them? What if that's my kid? And so there are 2 things I felt we needed to teach. Number 1, most important of all, if I only had 5 minutes to talk to you, I want to talk about this. We're in the middle of a global epidemic of sleep deprivation. Now, if you're sleep deprived, you're impaired, your judgment is impaired. The data is overwhelming. Folks, after 24 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.10 legally drunk. Sleep deprivation is stupid. It's like being drunk. You do stupid stuff. Do you understand? So, folks, on the 3rd day without sleep, you're psychotic. Any graduate of Ranger School tell about hallucinations on the 3rd day without sleep. You understand? There's people all around us going days without sleep. Hey, they race home after work and play the new video game all night long. They say, oh man, I played the new game all night long. It was so cool. If somebody showed up to that formation drunk, you'd kick his ass. Shows up sleep deprived because he played freaking games all night, he needs his tail kicked. There's nothing cute, there's nothing funny about showing up work drunk. There's nothing cute, there's nothing funny about showing up work sleep deprived. Now, a lot of y'all look at me like a deer in the headlights right now. Hey, dude, you're talking straight to me. Hey, you didn't know, but now you know damn well I'm right. We cannot keep doing business this way. And folks, there's this enormous attraction. These games, I trained at Fort Campbell, a battalion punching out to Iraq. The command sergeant major had been on previous deployment. He said, we're in kind of a barracks environment during the evenings, combat patrols during the day. He said, I told my troops, it's lights out at 2200. He said, if I catch you up after 2200 playing video games, I will take your video games. Command sergeant major said a week later, I had a closet overflowing with video games. He said, these are good troops. They wouldn't disobey an order, but they cannot not play those damn games. They give an illusion of control. They give an illusion of progress that is so stinking seductive to people under stress. All they do is make you stupid. Now, when we talk about that, again, on the 3rd day without sleep, you're psychotic. Sleep is a biological blind spot. Our bodies don't know how to make us get enough sleep because it happened naturally. Throughout the history of our species, every night, without fail, it got dark. And there's nothing to do. It's dark. A little talking, a little sex, roll over, you went to sleep. Body didn't have to make you sleep. It happened naturally. Our body knows how to get air, food, water. Try to go with the air or food or water, your body will take over. But the body is really incompetent at getting enough sleep. You got to make it happen. And folks, we need four-quarter players. We need seasoned players. And sleep deprivation makes us stupid. So, the ultimate stupid thing is suicide. The link between sleep deprivation and suicide is absolutely overwhelming. Do your own research. Go online and look at suicide and sleep deprivation. Boom, 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 study after study. Now, right now, it is physically impossible for you to take your life. The drive for self-preservation is so powerful, it's impossible to take your life. But you add alcohol, it inhibits that, and then you take your life. You've got all these other problems, you add alcohol, and boom. Alcohol is a catalyst. It's been related to suicide over and over again, one of the biggest factors. You got all these other problems, you add alcohol, boom, you're gone. But you see, you're only drunk for a short window. If you're sleep deprived, it's happening on and on. It's happening to kids. Now, this global epidemic of sleep deprivation and a global epidemic of suicide. Everywhere. Suicide in every nation, every community except the Amish have exploded. Do you understand? And the new factor is this incredibly seductive games and toys and all the other stuff keeping us up at night. Now, folks, the ultimate stupid thing is to take your life. Got all these problems, you add sleep deprivation, boom. You're able to inhibit that drive for self-preservation, and you take your own life. So, folks, here's parenting for the 21st century. Yeah, when you send your kid to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. No laptop, no TV, they got to go to the room and sleep. Now, worldwide, suicide rates have exploded. Teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old, teenage girls' suicide rate tripled per capita in just a decade. I had a cop come up to me during a break in one of my presentations. He said, I had one of those teenagers. He said, she was a good girl. She was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my phone every night. You can trust me. And he said, okay, I trust you. Keep your cell phone. Family policy, something on the charger, go to bed. He said, a little while later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And we never knew the hell she was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. And they can't just ignore that. We're not wired that way. He said it was heart-rending. She was up all night long, night after night, trying to defend herself, trying to find somebody to stand up for her. He said, I immediately understood. My little girl had been bullied to death. What I didn't understand until now, she's sleep-deprived, tormented, and bullied to death for my husband. I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message of the night. How do you expect her to? He said, the one thing on earth done for my little girl would take her phone every night, let her turn off all the bad stuff. This was. Who's going to be your mommy? Who's going to make you get this sleep? So I'm traveling across Ukraine and talking about if you. Oh, and let me show you another. It's a hard piece of data right here that we really lock onto. Is this concept of the harm that sleep deprivation is doing to us. Now, here is a great study, and it tells us that sleep deprivation is associated with 5 times greater PTSD, 9 times greater major depressive disorder, and 6 times greater suicidal ideation. This is not a causal relationship. It is not even a correlation relationship. It is a toxic, interactive relationship. If you want to get a handle on depression, you want to get a handle on suicide, you want to get a handle on PTSD, the way to begin is sleep. You want to walk out that door and save a soldier's life, sleep. Because you see, sleep deprivation is a key factor in suicide. It's also a key factor in traffic deaths. Decade after decade, we brought traffic deaths down. Airbags, seat belts, and then, for the last decade, worldwide, traffic deaths have exploded. What is the new factor worldwide? A global epidemic of sleep deprivation. So folks, we'll come back to that, add some more, but in Ukraine, now we have the smallest groups, right? 40, 50 people. Any more than that, it kind of becomes a target. And usually company-grade officers, captains, majors, lieutenant colonels. Now talk about this sleep deprivation, what it's doing to us. And how we got to do it. If you're sleep deprived, that bad stuff comes down. You're far more likely to get PTSD. If you're sleep deprived, the body is already under stress. You add more stress, and it compounds it. They amplify each other. Now, one young captain came up. He said, well, The Russians are always bombing us. You never know when it's going to happen. You can't sleep. So I play video games. You gotta play games because you never know, and you can't sleep anyway. Well, first, everything in World War II and World War I tells us you can sleep through anything. But second, those games were so seductive. And his friends are all looking like, dude, do you hear what just came out of your mouth? His friends are like, you're rationalizing, you're justifying this behavior. Another presentation, another young captain, oh, I have terrible nightmares. So I don't want to sleep, so I watch movies. See, so I don't sleep, don't have nightmares. Whoa, his friends are looking, dude, you understand what just came out of your mouth? You're just rationalizing this behavior. And so we got to, when we talk about sleep deprivation, it's a key factor in mental illness. Do an online search, sleep deprivation, suicide, sleep deprivation, traffic death, sleep deprivation, and mental illness. Now, folks, there's also a powerful link between sleep deprivation and pain. You don't sleep, you're going to hurt. Now, all around the world, there's been an epidemic of opiate deaths. Why opiates? Fentanyl's an opiate, and illegal fentanyl every year kills between 60, 70, 80,000 Americans. We lose more to fentanyl, an opiate, every year than the entire Vietnam War. Doc, I heard all the time, give me a pill to fix it. Pill, you need more sleep. And they got to knock off that damn caffeine shortly after lunch. That caffeine stays in your body, makes you have bad quality sleep. Guard your sleep, protect your sleep. Sleep is that little vacation that comes at the end of the day. And caffeine is the enemy of good sleep. Shortly after lunch, cut off caffeine. And so, folks, these dynamics, there's also a powerful, powerful link. I commend you a book. I just wrote the foreword to a book that's coming out in about 6 months, going to be dynamite. Meanwhile, this is a heck of a good book, Why We Sleep. And he talks about the link between sleep deprivation and Alzheimer's and dementia. Alzheimer's and dementia. And lack of sleep is a key factor. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite website is ScienceDaily.com. Check it every day through every category. Major study just yesterday. Again, identifying the link between bad sleep, lack of sleep, and PTSD. So I'll sleep when I'm dead. You have a decade of Alzheimer's first, you idiot. That'll scare the hell out of all of us. But the study keeps coming back to bad quality sleep. And caffeine doesn't make you not sleep. Caffeine makes it easier to stay awake and harder to have quality sleep. We're putting those mega doses of caffeine in our body. Folks, 15 years into the war, we gave away energy drinks like water. Then about 15 years in, 2 Department of Defense study on the energy drinks. For all practical purpose, the data is there. There is and should be a total ban on the energy drinks, U.S. Armed Forces. You know, folks, before a PT test, get up, they'll give you a 1-hour burst of physical ability, then you crash. Second feels good for 10 minutes, you crash. Third one feels good for 5. All you do after the first energy drink is building up your tolerance to the caffeine. And then when you need caffeine, it's not there for you. And you have a bad quality sleep because of that caffeine in your body. Again, protect your sleep, guard your sleep. Caffeine or sleep deprivation, key factor in heart disease and obesity. You want to control obesity, want to control heart disease? Now, folks, I trained just recently the West Texas School Safety Summit. Every principal, vice principal, safety in half of Texas. I told them, we're going to talk about keeping your school safe from violence. I'll bet none of you had a murder on campus. Bet you had some suicides. Bet you had some traffic deaths. Bet you got a problem with mental illness. You got a problem with opiates. If you want to walk out that door and save a kid's life, this is the place to begin. You want to walk out that door and save a soldier's life, this is the place to begin. We got to mandate sleep, and we got to track it. Now, the Air Force has always mandated a crew rest, but are they actually sleeping? Now the Air Force got them all wearing that Oura ring that tracks their sleep. They're going to be flying a $250 million aircraft tomorrow. Get some sleep, Roger out. Are they really sleeping? Well, now we're tracking it. So a coach told me, he asked me not to say what team ever, not what sport. He said, all my athletes, my team, they wear the little Oura ring. I'm tracking their sleep. If they're not getting enough sleep, I'm all over them. Every year, he says, every year, some guy wears 10 rings and goes to bed. His friends all go out and party. He said, we figured that one out real fast, yeah? But folks, he said, if I am playing, I don't know who's doing this, it's all our little secret, but if I am playing against a team who's not made any sleep, I will kick their ass one into the other. If somebody's got good sleep and good rest, you will kick tail one into the other. Do you understand? If they're not. And in our game, when people lose, we die. And pacing ourselves for the long game is absolutely critically important. And so, folks, I've had the honor to work with some folks out there called ValorNet. ForceCom's locked it in, CENTCOM's locked it in, Bragg is bringing it in, West Point's bringing it in. And it's this whole kind of a combination of wellness. I work with these guys, I tell them the primary thing they're getting is the sleep management. One brigade does it, the other doesn't. We want what they got. Because their suicides went way down, and their traffic deaths, all the other bad stuff went down. All right, so we talked about re-experiencing the event. We talked about stress inoculation. Stress inoculation prevents you from going to that roller coaster ride, you understand? But you need to be warned what it's going to be like in combat. Folks, I was freaking Radar O'Reilly. I enlisted 82nd. The first sergeant plucked me out to be the company clerk. Yeah. And we had Vietnam vets all around us. We never know what combat was like. They wouldn't say. And so I really had this idea in my head from the very beginning to study killing. And that was my book on killing. But I was interviewing World War II vets and Vietnam vets by the hundreds. And they were 18-year-old kids who went to a distant land, killed somebody that doesn't know harm. For all those guys, hard. But for mature individuals, prepared themselves mind, body, and spirit, it's not that big a deal. Now, if you could choose how you respond, I think you'd want to feel good about it. And there's still a lot of people need that, thou shalt not murder thing. But we're on combat, and we talk about the physiology. And I want to show you what's happening with that physiology of fear. Now, these are two people coming down for the World Trade Center on 9/11. His face is bone white. Her face is beet red. What's happening to him is vasoconstriction. The body shuts down the blood flow to the outer layer of the body. Now, the capillaries are shut down. The arteries and the body core are holding twice as much blood. What's happening with his blood pressure right now? Through the roof. Now, we have all seen that red face, but pay attention to that white face. If you had darker complexion like white Socamas, it's still happening. Sometimes called the mask of fear. We'll talk about that word fear. But folks, he's on his second trip down for the World Trade Center. On the other side of the head, it's been cut, he's been burned. It may have taken him below the left cheekbone. What I want you to understand is when we talk about physiological arousal, we're not talking about her. You can do a set of wind sprints and get your heart pounding, and it's good to train with that. But when that sympathetic nervous system kicks in and the body shuts down the blood, why is the body doing that? Well, the outer layer of the body becomes a layer of armor. Look, the arteries are the only thing holding blood. Let's say you're fighting a wolf. And the wolf, if the wolf wins, your family's dog food. You're not fighting for your life. You're fighting for the survival of your genes, probably your tribe, right? Trying to cave the wolf's head in with a rock. And the wolf can shred your arm and nick out the artery. You shred your chest and not puncture the body core. Your successful battle, you caved his head in, you won the fight, and then you relax. Then you bleed out and die. The body will always backlash. The wound that didn't bleed the heat of battle will gush blood afterwards. Today we slap a tourniquet on the wound. You understand? We survive in the battle because of vasoconstriction and our friend Mr. Tourniquet. But what's the price you pay? You lose fine motor control. And then a bunch of other things begin to happen in the heat of battle that you need to know. Two things I wanted to know in Ukraine was, number one, this whole dynamic of sleep deprivation and how it's killing us. And this right here, short and sweet, 85% of cops in deadly force incident interviewed immediately after by somebody they trusted, 85% the shots got muted. 16% had intensified sounds. Even old Buck Sergeant from Arkansas figured out that adds up to 101%. I've had the honor to talk to more people who've been in combat, anybody in human history. And the ones a little different have a lot to teach us. Now, with my cops, you're caught by surprise. In an ambush, boom, 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 shot through a wheel and start shooting back. The shots get muted. The body is focusing intensely on the sense you need most for survival. You start to shoot back. The eyes dial in, the ears dial out. You are still getting hearing loss. Tunnel vision. Bad guys have tunnel vision too. And rapid lateral movement, take it right off their radar screen. Bad guys have tunnel vision too. Rapid lateral movement, take it right off their radar screen. Autopilot. I love the story that was given by Peter about the paratroopers landing in Grenada and cheating. Well, they're under fire. You do not rise to the occasion. You sink to the level of your training. You do not rise to the occasion. You sink to the level of your training. You hit the drop zone, put your shoot in a bag. You're going to do that in combat. And so we got to identify these things and do the good things. Have them ready to go. Slow motion time. I have had hundreds of people tell me they can see the bullet in combat. On 3 cases, they walked to a point where the bullet went. No way they could have done if they weren't tracking it. Now, it's not like the Matrix where calls pass. You ever done paintball or airsoft drug with your eyes? That's what's happening. So I was in Long Island, a bunch of NYPD, regional cops, and a U.S. Marshals team. It's been a horrendous gunfight. One of the marshals told me, she said, narrow corridor, it's in a warehouse, coming down the corridor, and bad guy pops around the corner and shoots at me. So I ducked and shot. She said, I watched that bullet go past and clip my hair. She said, I watched that bullet go past and clip my hair. Slow motion is real, and obviously it's a survival mechanism, but it can absolutely freak you out and blow your mind. Some of the temporary paralysis is slow motion time, making it feel like forever. Now, memory loss. Half of all trained seasoned cops have blackouts, gaps in the memory. And 85% had tunnel, 80%, something in front of me they didn't see. And folks, we had an all-time record number of cops murdered in a single day in Dallas. In the same year, a bad guy went to the cop's house to murder their family. But Mama Bear protecting her den, most dangerous thing on the planet, you understand? Well, this business of being a sheep, it changes when you walk in their den, you walk in their turf. Dynamics change. She said, I killed that guy and I never lost a second of sleep. That's where you want it to be. She said, you know what bothered me? She said, I heard my voice on the 911 recording. And to this day, I have no memory making that call. She said, it was really bugging me. Then somebody showed me a book. Look, page 55. It's normal. You can't just say it's normal. You got to show it to them in the book, yeah? I got my little Bulletproof Mind. It's kind of a workbook that follows along. It's got these slides in there as well. But you got to show it to them in the book. Now, memory distortions. 1 out of 5 just flat remembered something that did not happen. Now, I had the honor to work with a Navy psychologist a little while back, and he was in country in Iraq working with the Marine unit, and that one Marine has been shot up and in country in the hospital. And the Marine told the doc, I didn't shoot the bad guy. I failed to shoot, and he killed my friend. And friend said, because these distortions are almost always something bad. Well, the squad came in and did a debriefing. They said, no, dude, that didn't happen. It wasn't even in your sector. There's no way you could have taken that shot. Now, the debriefing is so stinking important. Because he knew this. He said, I read Grossman's book. I knew that was normal. If you know it could happen, then when it happens, you're not blindsided. So set aside the fact somebody's trying to kill you. Just set aside the fact somebody's trying to kill you. Right now, we got Intermission, autopilot, blackouts, hallucinations. That meets every definition for a psychotic episode. Dissociating by the cells that kill the daylights out of you. The fact that you've been warned it will happen is far less likely to cause trouble. Do you understand? Be forewarned and forearmed. So let's just wrap up with this photograph again. Oh, by the way, survivor guilt. Survivor guilt is not PTSD, it's grieving. And folks, right now, dedicate yourself. Somebody steals your comrade life away. Justice not vengeance. All it takes is one person doing something stupid to make us lose the whole damn war. You play this game by the rules. You don't want to play by the rules, then you get the hell out of our game. There's too much at stake. Lose it all because one idiot. And the second thing is life, not death. The life, death simply says, if I give my life to save your life, don't you dare waste it. Folks, can you agree with me that every living creature has a powerful drive to self-preservation? Including you, right? And so I want you to tell yourself right now, nobody takes my life without one hell of a fight. Can we all agree on that? Nobody takes my life without one hell of a fight, including you. Okay, sir, I will fight for my life. I will seek counseling. I will get medication. I will leave no rock unturned. I will fight for my life like I'd fight for my child's life. Because no one takes my life, including me, without one hell of a fight. Say it again. I will fight for my life. I will seek counseling. I will get medication. I will leave no rock unturned. I will fight for my life like I fight for my child's life. Because no one takes my life, including me, without one hell of a fight. Bring it into your soul, the moment of truth, and do the right thing. And so, this man's name is Christopher Amoroso. Amor is love. Amoroso is the lover. He's going to drop off that lady, going to go back to the building a third time. The building will fall, and not come home to his wife and baby tonight. Why do some people go towards their death again and again, while others run away? Well, in nature, the one place where the powerful drive for self-preservation, the one place self-preservation canceled out is a mama critter, many species, mama critter, who will die for what? Her babies are young, sure. Audie Murphy is the most decorated American soldier of World War II. He asked one time, he was asked, why did you do it? His answer was very simple. They were killing my friends. They were killing my friends. And so I asked you a question here. What is the opposite of fear? And I want you to understand, the Bible tells us we were not given a spirit of fear, but a sound mind and of love. The Bible says perfect love casts out fear. And the opposite of fear is love. Audie Murphy loved his fellow soldiers more than life itself. And Christopher Amoroso loves his fellow citizens, men and women trapped in that tower, more than life itself. And I tell you one more time, sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. To dedicate yourself, mind, body, and spirit, to the profession of arms. To be prepared to the utmost of your ability to read and to study and apply. And to be prepared to let the other poor bastard die for their country, do you understand? But if it comes down to it, we sacrifice. If need be, we kill. If need be, we die. And greater love is no one than this, that they lay down their life for their friends. But there are many ways to lay down your life. And as you go back now, most noble and virtuous of all endeavors, to walk out the door, prepared to lay your life down for strangers. And God bless you, your family, every endeavor. And God bless America. Thank you. Whew. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Well,
thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, for your presentation. At this time, we're going to break for lunch until 1300. Now, there are many nearby dining options, and food trucks are located behind this building where you can also purchase your lunch. Book sales and signings will continue to be available at the command post, and the symposium will resume promptly at 1300. Thank you for your attendance this morning, and we look forward to seeing you this afternoon.
yes.
Brian Coyne,
Yes, sir.
PO 100.
Hooah!